Hi, everyone, and welcome. You're watching Onwards and Upwards with AMN International, everything a global nurse needs to know to live and work in the United States. I am your host, Luciana Da Silva. We have a wonderful show coming up for you today. We will be talking about dream jobs in the United States. Special guest Joy Basong will be joining us. Immigration Q&A, that is the topic today. Retrogression. We have our lawyers on the line ready to go to speak with you. And of course, we'll end up with Holly's Clinical Corner for the latest clinical tips to work in the United States. If you are joining us, those who are, please share this stream with your friends, tag your friends, and of course, say hello to us here in the chat. We already have many people saying hello. Rhoda is from Riyadh, KSA. Thor is from the Philippines. We also have Jenny, who is here from the UAE. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. Let's bring in our wonderful partner lawyers, Mike Hammond and Chris Maslio. Hey, you guys.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Morning.
Let's start off with some introductions. These guys are no strangers to the show, but if it's ever been you've never seen it, first time you're joining us, let's get started. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Luciana. I'm Chris Masillo. I'm an immigration attorney with Masillo & Holt, and pleased to be joining everybody today.
Thank you so much. Mike, please introduce yourself. Who are you?
Yeah, Mike Hammond. I'm in Cincinnati, immigration attorney with a firm called Corporate Immigration Partners. And on my cell phone today, which is why the whole thing of not happy with Microsoft.
I was about to say something about that. Not happy with Microsoft today. But right here on Onwards and Upwards, we are safe, which is why we're able to stream today. Of course, we do have our legal hotline. We'll be putting the link in the chat. All you need to do is just click on it and you will be brought into our backstage area. This is your chance to ask our lawyers your questions live on screen. Please put your cameras on and we'll be bringing you in shortly. If you're backstage, just sit tight. We'll be getting to you soon. Thank you so much, Chris and Mike. Let's just jump right into it right now. The Visa Retrogression, the Visa Bulletin. Let's bring it up right now for the Visa Bulletin that's current. Mike, if you will please walk us through this.
Sure. So this is the August Visa Bulletin that just came out about a week and a half ago. And to some degree, there are really no surprises. The dates held steady. Typically during the summer, the dates retrogress or don't move at all. And that's what we saw in August. So no surprise. We certainly expect the first forward movement to be in October. There was a warning in this August Visa Bulletin that the September Visa Bulletin is likely going to show a U in place of numbers, which refers to unavailable, and that simply means they've used up all of the immigrant visas or the green cards that are allotted for the fiscal year, which is a positive thing. It may appear to be negative when you're waiting, but from a system perspective, knowing that they've actually used all of the visas available is a good thing, not a bad thing. So no surprises in August, and we don't expect any surprises in September.
Chris, tell us, why is October an important month for the Visa Bulletin?
Yeah, right. So October is an important month because the U.S. fiscal year runs from October 1st until September 30th. So it doesn't run on a calendar year, January 1st to December 31st. As a result of that, the U.S. Immigration Services are seeking to fully utilize the allotment of visas over the course of that U.S. fiscal year. So for employment-based visa categories, including nurses and other allied healthcare workers, which is, I assume, most of the listeners in on this teleconference, there's 140,000 annual visas each year, and so they are issued from October 1 to September 30th. And so what the U.S. government is trying to do is make sure that it uses all 140,000 before September 30th. And it's a delicate trick for them because they While theoretically they could actually probably issue all of those visas on October 1st because there's more than 140,000 visa applicants in the processing queue for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the government trying to pace out the inflow of workers over the course of the year. The ideal situation would be that the U.S. government would use that 140,000th visa on September 30th. That's, of course, very difficult for them to do. And so it's not uncommon for some time in August or September for that 140,000th visa to be used. And then, as Mike was indicating a little earlier, that would mean that there's no more visas left for the fiscal year. But that's the bad news. The good news is come October 1st, the visa faucet gets turned back on again.
The visa faucet. I love it. Water is life, right? So, of course, to all of our viewers, make sure, put it on your calendar. October, we will be going live whenever the Visa Bulletin comes out with our two wonderful partners, Chris and Mike. I'm going to be bringing you guys back on a little bit later in the show. We do see that there are some people on the legal hotline right now, so sit tight. We will be getting to you in just a moment, and Chris and Mike will be joining us a little bit later in the show. First, we would actually like to check in with Joy on the latest dream jobs in the United States. Hey,
Hello.
Joy is out
Hi,
today.
hi, Lucy. Hi,
Hey,
hi, everyone.
Hi, where are you joining us from?
I'm from Philippines, so I'm based in the Philippines. So yeah. So everybody, hi, morning, afternoon, and evening.
Take it away, Joy. Tell us about the latest dream jobs.
Okay, so right now I will be introducing two states to you, Pennsylvania and Virginia. Although I would like to encourage everybody to be open with the location. With AMN International, we have a lot of opportunities with other states as well. But with these two, right now we will be introducing Pennsylvania and Virginia and top reasons why you want to relocate to these states. So let's start with Pennsylvania. So top three reasons to move to Pennsylvania. So it has it has a rich history and culture. So it has Pennsylvania offers numerous historical sites like museums and landmark, and that highlights how Pennsylvania, the import Pennsylvania in shaping the American history. It has also a very vibrant cultural scene wherein with world-class museum, theaters, music venues, festivals. So you will never run out of things to enjoy in Pennsylvania. Second reason is the diverse landscape from cities to countryside. So if you are an outdoor enthusiast, you can enjoy hiking, skiing, fishing, or camping with your friends and relatives. So the last one reason is the lower cost of living than among neighboring states. So Pennsylvania is more affordable compared to other states, neighboring states, especially the metropolitan areas of New York and New Jersey. So the housing cost, the utilities, and also the everyday expenses is more reasonable in Pennsylvania. So it is a good option for individual or families to stretch their budget while enjoying the quality of life. So we will be doing a cost comparison between two states, between two locations. So that is the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the other one is the California. That's the Long Beach, California. If you can see here, um, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is 32. It's too small for it's 32. Cost. It's lower than the cost of living in California. So you can enjoy the value of your money if you are in Pennsylvania compared to California. We can Another comparison we will do is the one in New York, the Manhattan. I'm sorry, it's so small. The So So if you can see here, if you're going to compare the cost of living in New York, is higher compared to Pennsylvania. So you can see the numbers here. Moving on, I'd like to introduce the next states, which is the Virginia. So three reasons why relocating to Virginia. So it has quality healthcare system. So as a healthcare provider, as a nurse, it is a good opportunity to be able to be part of the healthcare system of Virginia. So they are renowned for their comprehensive specialized care. Second one is the low tax. This is one to be considered as well. And the third one is the low crime rate. So relocating to other states, these are also like another factors that you will consider. The taxes in Virginia, especially the state property tax, is said to be among the lowest in the nation, and the crime rates also in Virginia is lowered compared to the national average. So thus contributing to the high quality of life of each individual, of each residents in Virginia. So if we're going to compare the cost comparison between Virginia and California again, so if you can see here, it's living in Virginia, it's way it's lower compared to California. So you can see the housing also is if you are in California, it's higher compared to Virginia. We can compare also the one in New York. Again, the cost of living is lower than it's lower in Virginia compared in Manhattan. I guess that's it for now. But again, I want you to be open with all the locations we have. And if you haven't applied yet with us, please send your application to www.amnhealthcare.com/forward international. And our team, the recruiters, will be happy to assist you and to discuss all the options with you. Thank you so much. Back to
Thank
you,
you,
Lucy.
Joy. We love to see you here. One quick question for you before we get to the legal hotline. Right
Mhm.
now, retrogression, there is a difference between staffing and direct hire. AMN International, we do both. But when it comes to retrogression, you have a lot of experience in this area working with nurses. What's your advice whenever they're trying to go between staffing, direct hire? What do I do?
During the retrogression, there are more opportunities for the stopping options or for the stopping position. So I want to encourage all the nurses to be more flexible. We have to be more flexible. We have a lot of in the staffing, so you have a lot of options and consideration. So during this time retrogression, it's very important to get your application online. So get a sponsor wherein with the staffing, we can file for your green card within 30 days from the time you sign the contract with us. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Be open with staffing. And for those nurses who are not currently working in bedside, most of the hospitals are really looking for nurses who are currently in bedside in an acute setting. So if you're not in acute, if you're not in bedside, I want you to go back. I request you to go back. And if you can take consideration to take an opportunity in the UK or in the Middle East while waiting for the US process, especially we have that retrogression at the moment.
Thank you so much, Joy. What amazing information. Really, really helpful. You're such a pioneer of our industry and such a cheerleader for our nurses. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you also.
You're always invited back. Okay, let's get to the legal hotline. Right now, let's see, we have a few people backstage. Let's welcome back Mike and Chris. We have Vikram joining us today on our legal hotline. Hi, Vikram. I believe you're on. There we go.
Yeah. Hi.
Vikram, tell us about yourself. Where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm currently calling from Rochester, and this is for my wife. Actually, she's just kind of sleeping after work. So I had a question regarding of my work. She's apply. She has a priority date from 2005, and she just recently. She used to work in Canada, so we thought of moving in to US. So she took small contracts as a TN to work here. And now we thought we'll just work here after working some time here in US. We thought, okay, let's try US and we can slowly move in here. So we did the process, started the processing. And my question, because still work in Canada, so I know that some people have advised me that going to Canada might affect your green card processing for some reason. So, and maybe, I don't know. We just filed recently, so I just thought, I'll just ask you guys. My wife is supposed to come and ask you this because she just went to sleep after work, so I had to do it for her.
Mike, do you want to take this question?
Sure. So Vikram, you said you recently filed. Did
Yeah.
you file a I-485 along with an I-140 or just an I-140? Do you know what was actually filed?
It's just a I-140, and yeah.
Do you know why you didn't file the I-45? Is her priority date not current? What you said 2005?
Yeah.
So
because we were in Canada and here and moving here and there. So for some reason we had our house there, and then those guys advised us for the counselor interview.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you'd want to talk to the attorney that's handling your case to see why they wanted you to do consular interview. Certainly a consular interview process is perfectly fine. If you're traveling, though, with trying to travel on a TN with a priority date that's current and I-140 filed, I would strongly recommend against that unless you're planning on simply staying in Canada. So if your question is mainly about traveling, I would say do not travel. I do not think you will get admitted back on your TN with a 2005 I-140.
Oh, okay. I did apply on March, so it's still they're capturing. So that will affect your thing, right?
Yeah, I would not travel unless you're planning on traveling for the last time until after your consular interview.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was planning because I do work, so that was my concern. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vikram, for joining us. Hopefully you got some information there.
Yeah.
Let us turn over to our chat. We have a lot of people coming in on the chat. We have more people backstage for the legal hotline. We'll be getting to you in a minute. Also, we'll be putting the link in the chat in case you want to join our legal hotline as well and ask our lawyer partners your questions live. Let me go to the top of the chat here. So many questions coming in. We have first Leonardo, priority date October 2023. How long do I have to wait? Leonardo da Vinci is asking. Chris, you want to go for that one?
Sure. It was October 2023, and are we assuming that Leonardo is Filipino? If so, the current priority date is December 2021. But as I mentioned earlier, my sense is that come October 1, we will see more visas added to the queue. And so, it's always really hard to predict where exactly the State Department, are going to land with respect to the visa bulletin. But I'd like to think certainly it won't be very long, but trying to predict exactly what month is I think, frankly, impossible. But if I had to guess, I might say something like for October of 2023, I don't know, maybe something like 1 year from now, maybe next summer, something like that. He should be admitted into the United States, but that's just a guess, honestly.
Thank you so much. Let's get to the next question here. We have Bucky. I was interviewed on the 5th of July. Visa refused under 221G due to missing document. The missing document was submitted and our passports were collected on the 9th of June. My priority date is October 2022. And up Till my date, I have not heard anything from the embassy. And when I sent a message to follow up, the reply was that my application, keep going here, my application is still undergoing standard administrative processing. So I like to know, number one, how long does administrative processing take? And number two, is it possible? Chris.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, it doesn't look like you're current anymore, so you will not get your visa until at least October. That's number one. Number two, in terms of how long administrative processing takes, since you're not current, my assumption is that the embassy would not make this a high priority until at least October when you became current. And then three, it will depend on what the Visa Bulletin shows for the current priority dates in October. So, the bottom line is I don't think you'll really hear anything until at least October.
Thank you. Mike, we have a comment in the chat for you. Mohammed is saying, looks like Mike lost some weight.
Thank you, Mohammed, but it's just the angle of being on my cell phone. That's all.
Well, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, right? I don't see anything here. Everybody looks really fabulous. Especially all these questions coming into the chat. So, Chris, you're up. Here we go. Oreo Master. I'm loving these names today. I obtained Canadian citizenship after DQ. I'm still waiting the P4 letter from the embassy in Montreal. Should I do something to do before the interview? Is it going to affect my processing time? Lots of TN visa questions in here.
Yes, what I'm not sure is if you want to put that back on screen, maybe that question. I'm assuming that he's talking about the immigrant visa, not the TN visa. In terms of doing something, no, I mean, there's nothing to do. You just need to wait until your visa appointment is set up. And I don't know what he means by he's waiting. Is it going to affect his processing time? I assume he's saying, is my Canadian citizenship going to affect the processing time for the immigrant visa? And the answer is no, it should have no impact whatsoever. One exception being if he didn't say what country he's originally from. There's a few countries that if you accept citizenship in another country, by operation of law in that country, you lose your citizenship in that first country. It's pretty rare. I guess theoretically that could impact the processing time, but outside of losing the citizenship in the old country, gaining Canadian citizenship should not affect his Montreal processing time.
Thank you so much, Chris. We have a couple people backstage with the legal hotline. Let's bring in Allie. Allie, are you there? Please join us. Oh, we cannot hear Ollie. If you want to put your camera and your microphone on. Okay, well, we'll take you backstage. Let's get back to the chat while Allie's figuring out her, technology. We are not happy with Microsoft today, right, Mike?
Exactly.
Maybe a victim right in there. Next question. Let's see. Safina is saying some of the cases of 2022 were already finalized and visa has been issued. Why are cases retrogressed to December 2021? Mike?
Basically, as Chris kind of alluded to and talked about at the very beginning, the USCIS throughout the course of the year, so the Department of State, the consular offices, and the USCIS through the approval of I-45s use up the allotment of 140,000. And when that allotment is used up, there are no more until October 1st, which means even if you were current in the front of the line at one point, once the visas were all used up, you don't lose your spot in line, obviously, but the line basically gets behind you simply because they've ran out. So typically what will happen in October is you're going to go forward again. And so if you were current at one point this year, you're likely going to be current again in early of next year. But it's nothing to do with your case specifically, not a you problem. It's just the way the overall process works. And because it's a use it or lose it, so if they only issued, for example, 130,000 out of the 140, 10,000 would be lost. We very much are happy when they use up as close as possible to the 140,000 so that we don't have waste. So don't think of this as a bad thing relative to your case specifically. It's just a normal part of the process.
Thank you, Mike. Now, a lot of people have questions about retrogression. It is super confusing, scary. We have a graphic here that shows all of the steps of the immigration process. And it actually points out where in the immigration process that retrogression is happening. At what point does it affect a nurse? Because you can do a lot before a retrogression hits. The idea is to get in line, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you know, one of the themes that I think we've had over the years that we've been doing this show is it's very it must be very unnerving, and Mike and I have both been doing this for many years. It must be very unnerving to do everything that you were supposed to do: pass your NCLEX exam, pass your English fluency exams, get your visa screen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Say nothing of even just becoming a nurse and getting through college and maybe getting a few years of work experience. And those are all the things that you can control, and you should control those. You should, but there's certain things that you can't control, like visa retrogression. What I'm here to tell you, and I'm sure Mike would agree, is that everyone gets to the end of the line. And while a 2-year retrogression does seem frustrating, I'm sure to many people who've worked so hard and maybe has seen friends of theirs a few years back who maybe the process took half as long, they will get through this. You will get through this. So control the things that you can control. Do all of those things we talked about: NCLEX exams, English fluencies, etc. Find a good employer you think who's going to be a good match for you, who's going to offer you the type of job in the type of location at the pay rate, etc., that you think is going to be good for you and your family. Control that, and rest assured that you are going to get through retrogression. But you know, every week refreshing the Visa Bulletin page to try and see where the if your date has moved forward. You know, if you're a month or two out, sure, maybe you want to do that. But if you're a year out, then just sit back and check it once a month and control the things that you can control. But overly worrying about where the Visa Bulletin is going to be a year from now, I don't. My experience is that doesn't do anyone any good, and probably needlessly creates anxiety.
What you can control, if we look at that graphic right there, what you can control are those first few steps. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. You obviously passed the NCLEX. You found a job. Your I-140 is already filed. For most people that are worried about retrogression, their I-140 is already filed. They have a priority date established. So passing the English test, getting visa screen, getting your documents together, all of those things are good things to do and things you can control and take action on while you're waiting. So I think the best way to think of retrogression is simply how long the process is going to take. So instead of viewing it as a new hurdle in the process, because it's really not. Retrogression has been around for as long as Chris and I have been doing this. I think 47 years for Chris and about 31 for me, something like that. And so it's been there forever. We just had during COVID and after COVID a short period of time where it didn't exist. But at all other times over the last 25 years, we've had it. So think of retrogression as simply how long it's going to take. And instead of it taking a year like it was maybe 2 years ago, it's going to take 2 years. And that doesn't change what you do as far as your process. Now, a couple things I would suggest, though, is the length of retrogression affects the assignments and what you want to be doing today with your work. For example, as Joy commented on the call earlier, if you lack some bedside experience and you've got a 1 year or 2 years left for retrogression, or maybe even a year and a half, taking a 1 year overseas assignment, whether it be in the UK or in the Middle East or Australia or wherever, is probably a really good idea. If you only have 3 months left before, and you're the person that called in earlier that has a priority date that's really close to the 2022 where it was, then that's probably not a good idea for you. So there are some complications as a result of retrogression, but generally speaking, think of it simply as how long it's going to take me to get to the end, but you will get there.
beforehand, like you said, control what you can control. So here's one thing you can do as well. Apply amnhealthcare.com/international. That's your first step on starting your journey. Now, we are speaking with nurses who already have their NCLEX. That's who we're prioritizing right now. So if you have passed your NCLEX, that's your golden ticket. Apply now. The staffing option, we can file you on that I-140 faster. That is what we are told. We do offer direct hire and staffing, but doing the staffing route, it seems to be a better option. Both are great, but it seems to be a better option. Chris, what do you think about that whenever you're talking about direct hire and staffing here?
Yeah, I think that they both have merits. I think it's really important for the nurse or allied worker to choose the right situation for them. I think there's benefits to both. Staffing affords more flexibility, both on the employer side, which is sometimes advantageous when there's a long retrogression, right? So if you're filing your case today and you're with a staffing company and you're probably not going to get your visa for maybe 2 years, no one really knows in the summer of 2026 where the jobs in the U.S. are. We can say with a high degree of certainty that there are going to be many, many U.S. jobs. There are somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 open nursing positions in the United States, and that just keeps getting larger each day. So we know that there are going to be open positions, but we don't know which positions are going to be open and which positions are going to be the best match for your skill set and your career goals. And so sometimes the staffing company is good in those situations because the staffing company likely will have different options for you down the road. On the other hand, a lot of people like to have the certainty of knowing where they're going to go. They like the ability to start liaising and dialoguing with the health system today. And that can be really beneficial, especially if they know where they want to go. And so having a direct placement model has that advantage, which is to say that hospital is, not going anywhere. It's in, pick a city, Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago, wherever in the United States you're going, Pennsylvania, as we heard the speaker a little earlier. And you can start researching that area, start learning about that hospital or health system. And so that's a good match for other people. One last thing about Pennsylvania, I actually lived there for 4 years. It is a beautiful state, like they were talking about earlier. I really like Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania really is beautiful. It has all the seasons.
Yeah.
And super, super historic for the United States too, right?
Yeah, no. Philadelphia was actually the first capital of the United States before even Washington, D.C. actually existed. The other thing that's nice about Pennsylvania is the Four Seasons idea, which is at this time of the year, it's just a pleasant place to be. And yet in the winter, it doesn't get too much snow or anything like that, but you do get to see colors in the fall and the warmth of the spring. So if that's something that interests you, Pennsylvania is an excellent choice.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, and right now, Texas, Florida, always super popular states, but they're an oven right now with all the heat. So all of our friends in those areas, please stay safe, drink a lot of water, and that's really, really important. But Pennsylvania, they're sitting nice right now. All right, back to the questions in the chat. Mike, this one's for you. I have a question to the attorney. My I-140 was filed July 2023. It's already 1 year. It's not yet approved. May I know the cause of the delay of the approval? I think you know the answer to this one.
Well, I'm assuming that the case was filed under regular processing, which in today's, with retrogression, as long as it is, I think regular processing for most cases is perfectly fine. There can be a couple of reasons for delays. Sometimes there was a request for evidence issued that will delay a case. I don't know whether there was in your case or not, but that can happen. And then the response time for request for evidence can be up to almost 90 days. So that can be a time consideration. Also, depending on which service center or which office your case is currently residing in, the processing times vary a lot right now. I would say if your priority date is not current, there is no cause for alarm. If your priority date becomes current in October, then you want to talk to your employer, your sponsor, about what the plan is. Are they going to upgrade you to premium processing in order to get you a quick answer? If your party date's not current, I do not believe it is unusual for alarm. But you could certainly reach out to the attorney that's handling your case, and they would at least let you know, presumably, whether there was a request for evidence or not.
RK is asking, what are the predictions for the filing dates for OPT students? Do you see it getting late 2023 or even 2024? Chris?
I'm not sure I follow the question when he says the filing dates for OPT students. OPT students, just for everyone who's listening, an OPT student is someone who's already here in the United States, almost always on a student visa, an F1 student visa. Those students generally graduate in, say, May, and shortly thereafter, they are issued an EAD card, an employment authorization document. In terms of the prediction for the filing date, I don't know if RK is asking when an OPT student might have their immigrant visa filed. If that's the question, he or she's probably best talking to the recruiter or the employer who's going to sponsor them. Unfortunately, I can't speculate on that.
So you said that OPT, that's an F1 visa, is that correct?
Yeah, so OPT is many F1 students here in the United States, when they graduate from college, qualify for something called optional practical training, which is the OPT acronym. And what that means is they are allowed between 1 and 3 years after they graduate for college to work in the United States. And that 1 or 3 years is dependent on a few things, but primarily it's dependent upon the employer that they are working for and the type of degree that they have earned here in the United States. So it's a way, so for instance, if you're a nurse in the United States and you get let's say you get your BSN in the United States from an American college, you're often granted at least 1 year of post-graduation work, or what we call optional practical training. And sometimes, depending on how the retrogression is, during that year, you can work on your OPT, which you're technically still on the student visa, and at the same time have your immigrant visa filed and pending and potentially even approved during that 1 year period. It's a little difficult now with the way retrogression is, but we've certainly seen it happen many times over the years.
Mike, are these F1 visas affected by retrogression?
Sure. Because retrogression, as Chris mentioned, OPT is good for a year for RNs. For other allieds, they may have the option of extending for another 2 years, and so the effect would not be as bad. But think about it from the perspective of if retrogression is, let's pick a random number, 17 months long, and you can only work for 12 months, then at the end of those 12 months, even if you've already filed your I-140, which presumably you have, you're not going to be to the front of the line in time to file your I-485. So you're going to have to figure out, what are you going to do with respect to status? How are you going to legally remain here in the U.S.? And you're going to have to deal with what you're going to do with respect to work. So some students, generally speaking, what you'll want to try to do is to file your I-140 as soon as possible after you've joined a hospital, so that it is easier, so that you have the longest period of time possible, but you're still going to have a gap. And then for a lot of students in that gap, they're facing that gap. Some are going to go back to school. Some of the school programs are going to allow them to work in something called First Day CPT. Other school programs are not going to allow them work, but will give them legal status while they wait for the retrogression for their date to become current. Some individuals are going to have a spouse in the U.S. on some other visa status, and they're going to be eligible to change status while they wait. Some are going to choose that, hey, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go home. I'm going to work in Australia. I'm going to work in the UK, whatever, and I'm going to switch to consular processing. So there's a lot of individual decisions that have to be made by students. And this is all relatively new as a direct result of retrogression. So, but it's definitely a great path. It just is not a simple, straightforward path like it used to be.
It never is, though. My mom always said that, my mom's an immigrant from Brazil, healthcare worker, and she always said that every immigrant could write a best-selling book on how like their journey to the United States and everything that happened. And you guys see it every day as well. And we really, really appreciate everything that you do. And AMN Healthcare, we are recruiting OPT for the F1 visa. So get on that, open up another tab. Don't leave us. Go to amnhealthcare.com/international and apply now. And our recruiters are waiting to speak with you. Next question, we have Feo. I am currently working on work visa in the United Kingdom. My visa will be expiring in December 2024, and I have a priority date of April 14th, 2023. Do you think I should start making arrangements on how to get to another sponsorship job in the UK or the USA?
What were the dates again?
Let's say we have, it'll be expiring on December 2024, and they have a priority date of April 14th, 2023. Mike or Chris, one of you guys want to take this one?
I mean, I think the part I don't know, Mike, perhaps you know, is how the UK immigration system works. Are you going to have to, for instance, commit for a year? I got to tell you, for April of 2023, you know, I doubt that you will be current, you know, gosh, I don't know, a year, something like that. It wouldn't surprise me if it takes that long. And so, you know, given that, you know, I'd say I doubt you'll be current earlier than maybe this time next year or even the fall of 2025. So if that helps you assess whether you should extend your UK sponsorship, I hope it does. But that would be my guess, is that you're probably really looking coming to the United States end of 2024, or excuse me, 2025. But also I'm speculating. It's very difficult to project where the Visa Bulletin is going to be. I don't even know where the Visa Bulletin is going to be in October, in a few months. Trying to guess where the Visa Bulletin is going to be next spring or next summer is really difficult.
Chris, where is that crystal ball? Chris used to have that crystal ball.
Right here.
Mike has that crystal ball too.
I do,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
We bought them in the same shop. Yeah.
We did.
Same barber over there.
Right.
Oh, we have another question. Okay, this is a fun. E-R-T Aerotrum. Yes. Hello from Taiwan. As the retrogression continues, can I go on vacation from the hospital now? In the contract, it says I need to work currently in the ER, but I have a 6-month period. So this seems to be very detailed here for their particular situation. But just in general, how does that work? Vacation, in terms of, staying, leaving the United States? I'm guessing they're in the United States as well, or filed already. Mike, what do you think of this question?
If they are in the U.S. and filed already, then they would need something called advanced parole to travel outside the U.S. after they've already filed for their green card. If they're not in the U.S., then their question may relate more, not from an immigration perspective, it's irrelevant. It may relate more to their sponsor, who has a requirement that they remain in the hospital setting, and taking 6 months off may impact that. So they should reach out to their AMN or Kinetics account manager and talk to them about their specific circumstances and determine how that's impacted.
Thank you. Yuri is asking, my sister's PD, which is priority date, is December 2022, and she is from the Philippines. Can you please at least give us a timetable when she can have her interview? Chris, where is that crystal ball? What do you think?
Yeah, I can't. If I could, I'd take it on the road. But if it's December 2022, it wouldn't surprise me if she is current October, November, December this year. So let's try and speculate a little there. Okay?
All right.
So December of 2022, I would not be surprised if she gets a Christmas present and gets an interview date around then.
Fingers crossed for Yuri. Fingers crossed. Of course, everybody, please continue to put your questions in the chat. We do have a few more minutes. Moosh is saying, I abandoned my first employer. My priority date is March 2023. Is it possible to cannot recapture my priority date for the new employer? Lastly, do you think I can be current at the end of this year? A little bit more speculation. Mike, what do you think?
Well, the first question is, you said you abandoned your first employer. You obviously had an I-140 already filed of March 2023. Whether that I-140 can be recaptured, and by the way, what she means by recapturing is if you have a second I-140 petition, but a prior priority date, there are ways that that second petition can use your old priority date, that you kind of own the rights to that priority date. And for that priority date to be in effect and allow for you to be retained, number one, it has to have been approved. Number two, it has to have either not been withdrawn by the petitioner, by the prior employer, or have been approved more than 6 months ago. If it was approved for more than 6 months, then whether the employer withdraws it is irrelevant. And third, they have to determine that there was not any fraud or misrepresentation in that petition. So assuming those factors are the case, then yes, you can recapture a priority date. Often in a situation where you have an older priority date, a company may want to do a premium processing request, particularly if there's concerns over whether the date's going to be recaptured or not, if there's some uncertainty about that. But as far as the crystal ball prediction, March 2023, I think it's very unlikely that you're going to be current in the first quarter of the fiscal year, which would be October to December. Maybe during the course of the rest of the year, I think it's possible. I mean, keep in mind the latest the dates went to was the end of November 2022. So you're looking for April to be current. You're looking for a 5-month jump. Is a 5-month jump possible during the course of the entire fiscal year 2025? Sure. Is it guaranteed? Of course not. But I think it's possible. So I would be optimistic about that date.
Thank you. Chris, question for you. We have seen your name in all sorts of national publications recently, both of you, speaking about retrogression. And Chris, you in particular, you are very involved in some legislation that's trying to be pushed forward. Tell us a little bit about that and where it is right now.
So the legislation that Mike and I and the AAIHR have been working on for, frankly, several years now is called the HWRA, Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act. That bill it would need to be passed by the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives and then signed into law by the president. And that would all have to happen before December 31st, so a little under six months here. I mean, the top line is it likely to be passed? The answer is almost certainly not. So that's bad news. What the bill would do is it would immediately inject 25,000 visas for nurses into the system and an additional 15,000 visas for doctors into the system. And then, of course, dependents would also be able to come, dependents being spouses and under 21 children. Having said that, the most unusual time always for laws to be enacted, or at least the most likely time for unusual pieces of legislation to be enacted, is towards the very end of a presidential term. Sometimes it's called the lame duck period, which is roughly the first or second week of November. We have the U.S. presidential election the first Tuesday in November. That, of course, is between President Biden and ex-President Trump. And gosh, I don't know I don't know how the global press is saying it, but it's all everyone is talking about here in the United States. In any event, that period from that first week or so of November until the end of December is the time when unusual or not, pieces of legislation go. So if it were to go, that would be the time frame. But again, I don't want to give anybody any false hope whatsoever. The idea of this bill being passed, or for that matter, any piece of immigration legislation, is probably very low, unfortunately.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for the future then. And thank you both so much for your efforts with that legislation. The United States is very complicated. It's a long process, and hopefully we'll be getting there. Mike, I have a question for you. We have Hakita is saying, what is going on at the Accra embassy right now?
I don't have any specific information. Obviously, embassy processing times vary greatly from one embassy to another. In part, that has absolutely nothing to do with your case. But I do not have any specific information about that embassy. I don't know if Chris does or.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's not uncommon and for these embassies to just sometimes really slow down in terms of processing. And the best thing you can probably do is to contact your employer, your sponsor, your recruiter, and also the attorney to see if there's something that can be done to nudge the case. But often, as Mike says, it's just beyond anyone's control. It's just the vagrancies of U.S. immigration.
Safina is asking, now this is actually a really good question because retrogression can be so confusing. Safina is saying some of the cases of 2022 were already finalized and the visa has been issued. Why are the cases retrogressed to 2021? How does that work? Chris, do you want to take this one, or Mike?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a little bit like we've talked about. It's just simply because all 140,000 visas are about to be used, and so as they get closer to as the State Department gets closer to the 140,000th visa, they have to prioritize the oldest cases. And so what all that really means is that they're prioritizing the cases from 2021 and 2020. That's the bad news. The good news is come October, that should be reversed and those cases should again be current.
Thank you both so much. One more question. Let's see. Oluwabuni James, question please. Is it advisable to go with H-1B and convert to EB-3 when I get to the U.S.? Mike?
Yeah, I assume this is an RN asking because for most med techs and other allies, the H-1B is the fastest option. But for RNs, keep in mind that very few RN positions are eligible for the H-1B. So the H-1B is not an option for most people. But for those where it is an option, you have to have a facility where the standard for that facility is a BSN. And that's not common in the U.S., but it is possible. And it has to be at this time of year what's called a cap-exempt facility, which is a nonprofit affiliated with a university. So if that's the case and you qualify for an H-1B, from a visa perspective, you're going to get here and work faster. Then you have to think about it from a family perspective. If you have a spouse, okay, that's coming with you on an H-4, your spouse is not going to be eligible to work immediately because the H-4 does not carry a work authorization with it. And so you may have a situation that doesn't work for your family. It might work just for you. So there's a lot of considerations that you have to look at when you're exploring the possibility of an H-1B. But do not think of the H-1B as a option for most RN cases. That is not accurate. Only some.
Okay, well, it seems like the overarching idea here is to get your place in line. Get filed ASAP. It's like waiting to get into the theater after you bought your ticket, right, Chris? Is that a really great way to think about it? Is that what you would say?
No doubt.
No doubt. It's definitely it. Well, thank you so much both for joining us. Please continue to put your questions in the chat. We do have wonderful Michelle Kilkenny, who actually heads up AMN International's licensing and immigration. Apply now, amnhealthcare.com/international. Get your process started. File that I-140. We will help you. We will help you do it. Make this process easy for you. And then at some point, maybe you'll be able to hook up with Mike and Chris and they'll be able to see through those crystal balls and we'll have a much better idea of the future of retrogression and immigration. Thank you both so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next month. And of course, to everyone at home, we have our last segment for today. As always, Holly with her clinical corner. Let's welcome Holly. I'm still dancing that intro music there, right?
Yeah.
Clinical Corner. Holly, what do you got for us today?
Hi, Lucy. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about the skills that are desirable for you to build while you're waiting to come to the U.S. So it's a little bit confusing for some people to think about how long that might be and why they need to focus on their nursing skills when they're working and, they're not going to be here for a while. But if some of these skills start to come more naturally to you, then when you get here, it's a stronger foundation that's already been built. And so as you go through your initial clinical transition period and your orientation with your employer and your facility, you already have some building blocks in place, and therefore it becomes a less stressful experience for you and you feel more set up for success. So on behalf of AMN International, as well as the facility that you're going to be at, our focus is certainly on setting you up for success with the tools we can give you. But we realize that if you also are part of that equation and you bring some tools into the process, the overall experience is that much better. So let's talk about a few things that are valuable for you. And also, if you haven't yet got an employer, you're like, what about me? Start building these skills as a way to speak more knowledgeably when you're talking to a prospective employer or facility that's going to give you an offer. Because if you are showing that you're actively engaged in building your skills because you know you're going to need them when you get here, even though today you may not currently use them in your role, it shows that you're taking some ownership and some initiative. And that's a highly desirable trait here in the States. We look for nurses who don't just sit back and go, I'm going to wait for them to train me. That's a lovely thought, but it's a very fast-paced work environment, and our nurses are looking to work with other nurses who are like-minded when it comes to seeking out training and materials to teach yourselves, as well as actively engage with the materials that are brought to you. So head to toe assessment. I talk about this a lot. I talk about getting your own stethoscope and practicing. If you can't use it at work, use it with family. All of you probably have that family member who's like, I don't feel good. So go ahead and listen to their lung sounds. See if it sounds like they have any crackles or wheezing or rhonchi or diminished breath sounds. And which area of the lungs are you hearing that in? If you are allowed to listen at work, you can ask the physicians if you're comfortable and they're willing, or senior nurses sometimes, hey, I think I heard this. Did you hear the same thing? And they may be like, no, I didn't. So head to toe assessments, listening to heart sounds, listening to lung sounds, listening to bowel sounds are all skills that you want to look fluid. And the reason for that is a new baby nurse who's just come out of nursing school is going to have that skill already in place. I'm not saying they're going to be 100% confident, but they've already been handling a stethoscope and listening and practicing through the last month of their training. And so it's not a thing that they're going to have to be too stressed about. And so for an experienced nurse who comes in seeming to be very stressed about using a stethoscope and listening, that could be an indication that maybe all those years of experience that you've built still have a significant gap. So if you start closing the gap now, more power to you. Sterile procedures like inserting a urinary catheter, central line dressing changes, sterile dressing changes. Those are things that if you're comfortable with how not to break sterile field, how to set up your sterile field, what it means to protect it, and get very comfortable with that, and obviously stopping yourself and restarting the procedure if you happen to break sterile field, those are things that you need to be comfortable with. Many med-surg nursing units are now integrating cardiac monitoring in. So if that scares you, you got to start to introduce that into your thinking and understanding. Learn the basics, get comfortable with that, and then start building. Use your time wisely. If I say to someone, can you recognize what atrial fib looks like? And they're like, no. Well, you have to know that for your NCLEX. So if you have to know it for NCLEX, it kind of makes sense. That's the basic nursing recognition expectation. You need to know it when you get here, even if you forgot it from the time you took NCLEX. Start refreshing, keep it fresh. EMRs are not as common in many countries, and we understand that. But if you get the opportunity, take it, learn it, become comfortable with it. IV medications are often administered in different countries in different ways. You may use syringe pumps, whereas here I may actually slow push that by hand. Do I properly dilute the medication with the right or reconstitute it with the right agent? And how am I going to do that? So you can see that list there. We talk about pain assessment, wound vacs, inserting IVs and being really comfortable with it, using IV pumps. Those are all things that are really important. There are a few more, but the underlying message is technology exposure is important, as well as your hands-on assessment skills. Not just the assessment piece, but starting to put together what those clues mean so that you could say to a physician over the phone, I've assessed your patient. I think this might be a UTI. Can I get an order for a urine culture and sensitivity? Can I get an order to check some additional labs? And you're suggesting those things versus passively waiting for a physician colleague to come in, assess the patient, and do whatever. These other skills that I mentioned here are also ones that you want to be comfortable and familiar with. If you can get exposure to providing tracheostomy care, suctioning patients, do it. Float to another unit where it's common and learn how to be comfortable with it. It's not my favorite thing, but I had to learn how to do it. Same with chest tube care. Refresh pharmacology. You guys usually know generic names really well. Start to get familiar with trade names and things like that. Know the process for identifying proper needles and syringe sizes based on numbers, not on color. Our colors here may be different. So if you're used to going for an orange needle, don't think that way. Think about the measurements themselves, what gauge and what length is appropriate. Obviously, preventing falls and knowing how to do that may be a little different here in the US. Remember, we think of restraints not as a fall prevention method, but actually as something that might increase falls. So you have to change your thinking on that if that's the way you work currently. We're not saying you're wrong, saying it's different here. And then, of course, things like PPE, proper PPE, donning and doffing, going in and out of rooms and doing it properly, and other infection prevention techniques. That's my clinical corner content for today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you will work hard to build those skills and keep them fresh during the time you're waiting to come.
Thank you so much, Holly, as always, for those tips. We do clinical corner every single show. Last week we did what was it? Colloquialisms. Really cool. Yeah, different names for different items. You guys can go to our website, check that out. And Holly is always here with some amazing tips. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here soon, Holly.
Sounds good. Thanks, Danielle. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. So thank you again for joining us. Let's take a look at our upcoming shows here that we have up on the screen. First of all, we have an employer showcase on July the 26th. Mercy Health will be joining us from Missouri. They are going to be giving you all the information for open positions that they have. You can learn about their system. You can ask the nurses questions of what it's like to live there. And we will also have members of the healthcare facilities administration team to answer your questions as well. So very excited, July the 26th. Let's hop over to the AMN Academy, our most successful love shows with our wonderful partners. First Monday of every single month, you're going to get an NCLEX class with iPass. The second Monday and the fourth Monday, so every other week, we have 9.0 joining us for some English classes. We need to brush up those skills, like Mike was saying. Prepare ahead of time. Do what you can do. Control what you can control. Pass the NCLEX, pass the English exams, and right here, free resource for you to pass. Aspire RN with Dr. Paul every third Monday for the NCLEX class. So as you can see, we go back and forth every week between NCLEX and English education to help you begin your journey towards success. Thank you so much again for joining us. Go to amnhealthcare.com/international to apply now, and we will see you here next week. Take care, everyone.